what we are going to take a look at, of course, is this vote by mail experiment and the Trump take on voting by mail in general. All right, let's just start with something different, though. I have to pee so bad. All right, I'll just play this. I'll just play this for now while I go pee-pee. Trump posted this saying, check out this mail-in voting experiment.
If you know how to mail a letter, you already know how to mail in your vote.
How you doing? Thank you very much.
But how long might it take for that vote to actually arrive and be counted?
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
We decided to test it, sending 100 mock ballots simulating 100 voters from locations all across Philadelphia to a P.O. box we set up to represent a local election office. A couple days later, we mailed 100 more, using the same size envelopes and the same class of mail as real ballots here. To approximate the weight, we even folded mock votes into every one. In the following week, we checked our P.O. box for the results.
Mail pickup notice, there's more.
When we went to collect everything, though,
Anything back there for you? Nothing? No.
most of our votes seemed to be lost.
That's all I have back there right now. That's
You're
nothing.
short, huh? You're totally short. I believe in you.
All right, then. Have a good day.
Okay, take care.
We had to ask for a manager
I'm trying to do something about mail-in ballots.
and explain ourselves before someone finally found our votes.
Then have me somewhere else.
Okay, thank you.
1, 2.
We soon discovered another problem: missorted mail. 2 pieces of it.
We got a birthday.
I discovered a problem while we were watching this. This dude is freaking jacked. It's kind of weird. We're going to rewatch the beginning because I missed it while I was pee-peeing. Sorry.
We decided to test it, sending 100 mock ballots simulating 100 voters from locations all across Philadelphia to a P.O. box we set up to represent a local election office. A couple days later, we mailed 100 more, using the same size envelopes and the same class of mail as real ballots here. To approximate the weight, we even folded mock votes into every one. In the following week, we checked our P.O. box for the results.
Mail pickup notice, there's more.
When we went to collect everything, though,
Anything back there for you?
Nothing?
No.
most of our votes seemed to be lost.
That's all I have back there right now. That's
You're
nothing.
short, huh? You're totally short. I believe in you.
All right, then. Have a good day.
Okay, take care.
We had to ask for a manager
I'm trying to do something about mail-in ballots.
and explain ourselves before someone finally found our votes.
Then have me
What is this argument? Like, the argument is what? That, like, the USPS that's, like, significantly underfunded for the biblical task it needs to engage in, that is not supposed to be run for profit anyway. One of the most important parts of American societal development, like the United States Postal Service it was around before America was. It's like one of the most important things that we have. But regardless, what is this comparison that this is going to be run like an election box or something? Stop defending UPS. You're kind of cringe. I think we're going to end early today because the stupidity has gotten out of control. I think that I cannot have a conversation when there are people that are this stupid in my audience. I'm not going to end it, of course. I'm memeing, but like, god damn, dude. Like, how much did your mommy drop you, brother, when you were growing up? What happened, dude? Were you just left alone a lot? Is that what happened? Where you just fell from high spaces? Did like a family member push in the soft spot of your brain? My mom is here, by the way, for those of you wondering who's behind me. A mother who did not drop me. She couldn't hear me because she had her AirPods in originally, but she did respond. You can't hear because of the noise gate. She'll be back in a second. Anyway, where were we? Okay, let's get back to it. Thank you, M4 Leanne. If you're ever tired of your dum-dums in your chat, you can always switch to gaming. Gaming streams are kings. You're right. That is literally true. Anyway, so this is yet another consequence of underfunding like fundamentally important institutions that provide a necessary and in a lot of instances life-saving service, and then acting like because it's underfunded it's like it's bad and that we shouldn't be using it. And I don't know how to retaliate, because like if the fire department is not able to put out all of the fires, the answer isn't to abolish the fire department. Like, no one thinks this way when it comes to the immediate, tangible, material impact that the abolition of the fire department would turn into. You can't make a comparison between the fire department and the police, because one is a fire and it literally spreads, whereas the other is built in to exclusively do the bidding of capital owners and separate the owner class from the working class, both historically and in contemporary society. Our answer to policing isn't to defund or abolish the police so that we can have private militias like Blackwater, or Academy militias storm the streets with even less regulation. If there were existing private fire departments, the GOP would be trying to defund and privatize the fire department. The fire department used to be private. In its inception, the fire department used to be private. There were fire companies. You know what happened? Fire spread to houses that had paid for the insurance from houses that had not paid for the fire insurance. So they realized, oh, this needs to be public. There was also a problem of like competing fire departments fighting one another, like you see in Gangs of New York. So we did that, and it didn't work. And that's why we don't have private fire departments, even though we kind of do now. We have fire insurance for the wealthy. Of course, you know, that's another consequence of like American capitalism, where like we have literally tried to at least privatize certain parts of the fire department, because we live in an insane country. I talked about this before during the wildfires that were occurring in California, where Kanye West paid for his entire neighborhood to be fought. Like, it paid for the fire insurance of the entire neighborhood. Very nice of him. It's the future of the United States, which is great. Anyway, I don't think we can compare 100 votes at what seems to be a small personal PO box to the entire USPS with a whole last election. Yeah, nobody is saying that there aren't going to be complications. As a matter of fact, everyone is saying that there are going to be significant complications with mail-in ballots. We had leeway. We had like 5 to 6 months to beef up the USPS, whereas Donald Trump has done the exact opposite and has, with very limited power, tried to halt their processes as best as he can. Made it harder for them to operate so that he can undermine the United States Postal Service. And then USPS is not underfunded. They get zero funding for the government and forced to prepay 75 years of pensions. Yeah, I know. That's what I mean when I say underfunded. Why is the private postal service solution bad then? Because the profit motive will eliminate life-saving, necessary services. You are not going to get mail in Alaska with the profit motive. There's a reason why the USPS is contracting their services to UPS and FedEx. Because FedEx and UPS does not want to go to bum parts where your stupid racist fucking parents live, okay? That's it. That's literally it. All of these dumbass Arkansas, Alabama idiots who are like, yeah, who privatize it, who gives a shit, don't recognize the reality that they will not get mail. Guess what? Cut your fucking racist parents out from any number of different life-saving services, I guess. I'm going to be fine. I live in Los Angeles. I don't have great ISP here because there's a monopoly where Spectrum owns pretty much everything, but I'll be fucking fine. I'll be able to get my mail. I got UPS. They're not up with West Hollywood. Postal service, much like airlines, should be focused on providing the best public service without hyper focusing on profits. Yeah, and it was that way. Yeah, the current postmaster is literally an anti-USPS Trumper. I know. Also, ironically, right now we are going through a change where brick and mortar retail is dying. So a lot of small businesses in America, in the future, are going to rely, as they are currently relying, on the United States Postal Service to ship packages. So if you truly talk about small businesses Republicans claim they care about, then you should love the United States Postal Service, as many small business owners do.
Okay, thank you.
1, 2.
We soon discovered another problem: missorted mail. 2 pieces of it.
We got a birthday card from Mike to Ronnie. Have a sweet B-day. Get it? There's a B on top.
When the birthday greetings ended,
Dude, I hate local news, man. Local news works to radicalize parents in the most reactionary way possible. Like, they are such pieces of shit.
12, 13.
we found a bigger issue. 21% of our votes hadn't materialized after 4 days. And the batch we'd mailed a week prior, some of those were missing too.
So of our 100 ballots, 97 arrived, which sounds pretty good, unless you consider the fact that that means 3 people who tried to vote by mail in our mock election were in fact disenfranchised by mail.
In a close election, 3% could be pivotal, especially in what's expected to be a record year for mail-in voting.
We're going to see somewhere between probably 80 and 100 million voters receiving their ballot that way.
The Postal Service says voters should mail their return ballots at least 1 week prior to the due date. But nearly half of all states still allow voters to request ballots less than a week before the election. So you can forgive the public for being a tad confused.
I like that they're saying that mail-in ballots will disenfranchise voters at a time when there is a global pandemic that makes it virtually impossible to have the same amount of in-person voting booths and polling booths, and also will literally put people's lives in jeopardy, especially older voters in jeopardy for their civic duty, for exercising their duty to have a voice in American democracy. A laughable notion, I know. So ultimately, it's still infinitely better than whatever the alternative is. But the alternative is that they just don't want anyone to vote. If it were up to Republicans and even some Democrats, especially in the primaries, we would just have landowners vote. Okay, that's what they want. They want landowners to vote. They don't want the workers to vote. And here it is.
How long do you think the post office recommends?
About 3 days, 2 to 3 days.
They're saying at least a week.
A week?
They're saying at least a week for your vote.
I just don't trust the mail. That's true.
You don't trust the mail either?
Well, I just don't. I would like to give, especially during COVID, give them ample time to deliver it.
Yeah. Also, none of this, and I mean none of this, is an actual counter to why we still need vote by mail. Mail-in ballot. Universal mail-in ballot.
I don't know. I'm scared that it might get lost in the mail. I just want to make sure that my vote is submitted. Like, I see that it's submitted, that it actually counts.
Tony DeCopel, CBS News, New York.
Completely unhinged, psychotic, and of course, it's being used. Of course, it's being used now by the president to do agitprop. Now, let me get to the actual point about this. Like, the reality is, are there going to be significant complications with mail-in ballots? Of course there are. Okay, of course there are. There are currently complications with, like, even during the primaries, there have been issues in places like New York and places like Georgia, right? A lot of issues. Some of which has been accurately pointed out here. Loss of certain mail, or having too much, your mail potentially not getting counted because it takes too long to reach the place that it has to reach. There are a lot of complications with mail-in ballots. I do agree. I do admit that. It's being made worse by Donald Trump and also the Republican Party and Congress specifically, because we need to pad these systems for in order to ensure that we have a fair and as free as a voting process as we possibly can have. For Trump, though, this is more significant than his calls to action or his agitations about the potential fraud that could be committed via mail-in ballots. There aren't going to be enough volunteers this year, but that problem is worse in places when all the ballots are cast at once. Yeah, that's a big issue. There aren't going to be enough polling places. There aren't going to be enough staff. A lot of the polling staff are older. They've been doing this for years. They're experienced. Some of them have died already from coronavirus. Others are understandably fearful of getting coronavirus. So that's a significant problem.
Votes hadn't materialized after 4 days.
So this video is 3 minutes long. I set a whole Apple TV in the time it took 15 minutes to watch. Dude, I'm not just reacting. I'm telling you I'm covering an entire news story. I'm just using this as seasoning on the background. How do you guys still fail to comprehend this, dude? Maybe mail-in ballots are a hoax. Maybe you'll believe that too if I say that. If you're that stupid that you legitimately think that like this is just about watching a video from point A to point B and not about explaining a really complicated situation to you beyond what we have seen in this video that is clearly agitprop being used by Donald Trump to delegitimize the potential, the results come November, basically. Okay? That's what's happening. He is setting it up so he can say that the results are illegitimate. That's it. That's the whole point. He now, as the incumbent in a position of power, also has the capacity to do certain things to make it harder for people to vote, to get his party to make it harder for people to vote. This is one of them. Vilifying the USPS and putting in an anti-USPS as the postmaster general and work stoppages, like enforcing work stoppages or making it slower, making this process slower is one way to effectively vilify the USPS so you don't have to turn around and get a significant amount of pushback when we have a conversation about universal mail-in ballots. There are plenty of states that have near universal or universal mail-in ballots. Oregon is one of them. They do it. Utah has mail-in ballots. If you want a red state as an example, it is insane that they can just openly agitate against more democracy, and there are idiots. There are absolute idiots in the Republican Party that get this propaganda and believe it. While mail-in numbers are great, isn't this a distraction from the GDP? No. That's so fucking stupid. This is an ongoing conversation that Trump has been engaging in to vilify and delegitimize the potential results in November. And not only that, but he's also talked about how mail-in... Okay, here are some of the other tweets from Trump today. Mail-in voting is already proving to be a catastrophic disaster. Even testing areas are way off. The Dems talk of foreign influence in voting, but they know that mail-in voting is an easy way for foreign countries to enter the race. Even beyond that, there's no accurate count. Again, insanely stupid, completely unproven. This is a conspiracy theory. Is he wrong? He is wrong. It is, even if you were to think about this with just regular common sense, which Republicans love to weaponize when it comes to believing in like psychotic conspiracy theories like the world is flat or whatever. Just think about it from a common sense point of view. The amount of organization necessary for this is such an overwhelming task that it is impossible. You would need to have like ninjas working inside of the USPS that know exactly what mail is a Republican's mail, so they can like steal it and then repurpose it, reforge your signatures. Like, even if you just can't do it, it's just completely insane. So you don't think there'd be voter fraud? No, I don't. The amount of voter fraud that occurs is so marginal, and oftentimes the most high-profile cases are literally Republicans, which is a hilarious additional part of that conversation. But the voter fraud that occurs is so marginal, so inconsequential that bipartisan sources have looked into this matter for years, including Trump's very own voter fraud task force, and have found time and time again that it is not a problem that impacts the legitimacy of our elections. It literally is not a problem. And Republicans have consistently used this non-issue to advocate for further disenfranchisement of voters by saying, like, oh, we need voter ID. We can't get millions of people in this country to vote to begin with, and you're out here worried about people that are secretly voting. They love voting so much that they're like going out. They're like, oh, there's no way I can coom. I love to vote. I'm voting. Oh, nothing does it for me. Oh, it's just voting, dude. I love to vote. I vote so hard. I vote long and hard into the night. I'm just voting for my dead grandparents all the time. Meanwhile, the majority of the eligible population does not vote in this country. And we're out here like having an argument about, you know, how we have to make voting even harder.